Sticking within the welterweight division, another big event was Pacquiao versus Clottey.
Yeah.
Dallas Stadium certainly was a big spectacle. Again, another event that really didn't live up to its hype.
You know, that type of fight, though, that was the fight that everyone was hoping for, Pacquiao and Mayweather. That's the fight everyone still wants to happen. But we all know the issue, which we don't really need to get into right now because it's really redundant and overdone, is the issue about the blood testing and everything else that went through it. But so Bob Arum served us Pacquiao against Joshua Clottey. Clottey, you know, he had that great showing against Miguel Cotto, and after that he was supposed to fight Shane Mosley. That fell apart. I believe he was supposed to fight the up-and-coming welterweight Mike Jones. That fell apart. And so Bob Arum said, you know, why not? Let's give him Clottey. On paper, it seemed like it was going to be a very competitive fight, but you have to remember that it wasn't the fight that everyone was really interested in. It was going to be taken at Dallas Stadium, which we all agree was a spectacle to behold. It was amazing to look at.
Right.
And we were curious to see how Pacquiao was going to do against a guy that was supposed to be, you know, really tough, hard-nosed, never really been dropped, hurt, anything. Knows how to fight. And Clottey basically just stood there like a heavy bag for 12 rounds and didn't do anything, which is a very underwhelming fight. But you have to remember, and we put it in perspective, it wasn't the fight that everyone was expecting to. Everyone was just looking to see Pacquiao and looking to see how it was going to happen at Cowboy Stadium.
Yeah, Clottey I mean, it wasn't a good matchup in the first place. We know Clottey is like this wall that stands there and marches down and takes punches to the elbows and gloves, exactly. So it wasn't a good matchup to begin with. Of course, both fights, the Floyd Mayweather fight with Shane Mosley and Pacquiao and Clottey, were both made because Mayweather and Pacquiao did not agree to fight under all their terms, including the drug test. So,
we might visit that later.
Yeah.
For now, you know, I mean, Joshua Clottey, a fighter from the Bronx. Guys, New York fighters haven't had a good year up to this point.
New York has not been standing up when it comes to us.
had it good in a very long time.
Right.
Brooklyn used to produce great fighters. The Bronx had some good fighters themselves. We haven't. The East Coast has not dominated in a very long time. The West Coast,
the West Coast right now.
West Coast is where it's at.
Right. Clottey lost his last fight. Paulie Malignaggi, Mustafa Khan, and then
Zab Judah still threatening to do something, but hasn't stepped up in a while.
He's got a fight in the Prudential Center coming up against Santa Cruz, Jose Santa Cruz, which is like a give me. So let's see what Zab.
I mean, Zab's moving down the welterweight, so maybe he can fit into that mix. We'll see.
Even the New York prospects haven't been having a good year. The future savior of the heavyweight division, Thor Hamer.
I think one guy we should be talking about right now is Danny Jacobs. He's the only East Coast guy. Well, he's been fighting a lot on the West Coast too, and in big cards. He just had a fight in the East Coast, which is winning that NABA and the NABO title.
It was his first fight in New York, wasn't it? Or one of his first fights in New York.
First pro fight in New York.
Yeah, he has a fight.
He fought in the same arena. He fought in the Golden Gloves, right? He's, I think, the only East Coast guy that we should be talking about. And a guy we had on the show, Peter Quillen.
He's another one. He just moved out to the West Coast to train with Freddie Roach. A lot of great things are going to be happening for us.
So let's see what happens.
Right. Pete will always be an East Coaster, and in our hearts.
Oh yeah, Pete. And when you talk to Pete, he'll always say he represents New York and East Coast to the fullest.
Yeah. Right. Well, there was one fighter. I guess he's not from New York, but I'm adopting Miguel Cotto as a New York fighter because there are more Puerto Ricans in New York than Puerto Rico. So Miguel, welcome to New York.
Yeah. Well, Miguel's always been New York.
Right.
He's been
McGarvin is his home,
and Puerto Rican Day Parade.
He's the guy who fights on Puerto Rican Day Parade.
That's right.
He had a big event, probably the biggest New York event so far. His fight versus Yuri Foreman, that was marred by the injury to Foreman and the subsequent questionable decision-making by Arthur McCanty Jr. That was a big New York event. I have to admit, it's good to have big events in New York, even though maybe the fight again was disappointing following that trend.
I just think that if you're going to make you're going to have these fights in these big arenas like Cowboy Stadium, Yankee Stadium, and places like that, make big fights. I didn't think the fight was big. No one thought the fight was big.
It was a big New York fight.
It was just a big event, I would say, but not a big fight.
Right, but very much like the way Cowboy Stadium was featured. This fight, the new Yankee Stadium was the star of the show.
You got to give Bob Arum credit, though. I mean, especially when you think of Yankee Stadium, you think of past fights. You think of Zale Graziano, Ali Norton.
It's been 36 years.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was really nostalgic, and everyone's really ready to do something like that. And hopefully this is the trend. This will be a continuing trend in the years ahead that we're going to have fights at stadiums. These fights need to be back at stadiums. Bob Arum was saying that he was hoping to stage a fight at Giant Stadium. That'd be great. Kelly Pavlik is still a draw in Ohio. Why don't you do something at the Brown Stadium? Like these fights, fights need to happen around here. We can't keep on going to Vegas and keeping the real fans.
They go to these places because of tax reasons.
Exactly. I know. I totally understand. That's exactly what it is. Like Mandy, that's why Mandy will never fight in New York. Bob Arum has said that many a times that Manny Pacquiao will not fight in New York because of taxes. Because we take taxes on everything. So
So let's see more stadium fights, guys. Okay. Now, let's talk about some fighters who have lived up to the expectations, who have had coming out parties this year. Sergio Martinez, guys.
Yeah, he had that close, I wouldn't even say controversial, because he did win. He did lose the fight against Paul Williams. It was a close fight.
Could have gone
either way, but I thought that Paul Williams pulled that out in the end. Some people felt that he didn't, but I felt he did. Sergio Martinez fight against Paul Williams was a fight also that was interesting because Pavlik was supposed to be this tough, opponent who only had a loss against Bernard Hopkins, who's a bigger guy.
And Sergio started fast.
Sergio didn't play, man. He started fast. He was outboxing.
Pavlik impressed me by the way he adjusted.
Yeah, he adjusted in the middle of the fight, but I think that once he got caught with a straight left that cut him, I think that was good for him.
The rest of the fight.
Yeah,
and go ahead.
And also Martinez kept the same pace.
Yeah,
he never slowed down. And Pavlik started to pick up the pace, and I think he kind of didn't have his second win, and I think that Martinez was able to capitalize on that.
So certainly Martinez having a great year so far, and hopefully we'll see more of him. Let's talk about the junior welterweight division, maybe one of the hottest divisions in boxing, maybe the hottest division in boxing, around 140.
Hot.
We got Timothy Bradley, we got Devin Alexander, and we've got Amir Khan now.
And Marcos Maidana.
Marcos Maidana, yeah.
Who do you think, if you had to pick a guy who is the top fighter in the division? I mean, I guess Pacquiao is still kind of in that division, though he hasn't really fought in that division. So let's take him out of the equation. Yeah. Of these guys, who's the top?
Timothy Bradley.
Timothy Bradley has proven himself. I mean, this is a guy who was not supposed to be fighting a title fight against Junior Witter, and he went out there to his country and not only won the fight, knocked him down, took the fight right off of him. He wasn't supposed to even win. He was another opponent, pretty much. And he was also brought up the rankings very quickly. He didn't have that many fights. He won against Kendall Holt, even though he was knocked down twice. And Lamont Peterson, I mean, another prospect that was coming up who was undefeated. He totally dominated.
And he was on his way to beating Nate Campbell.
And the fight with Nate Campbell, forgot to talk about that.
Yeah, he was on his way to beating Nate. The junior welterweight division, like you said, is extremely hot right now. We have great prospects. We have great champions right now, and Timothy Bradley, Devon Alexander, who I think could be the class of the division if given the chance pretty soon.
That was really
my thing with Devon, not to cut you off, but my thing with Devon is that he had one good fight. He had that one good fight with Urango. I still want to see him in other fights. This fight that is coming up now with Andreas Koenig, I want to see how he performs against Andre, because he was. He is undefeated. He was winning fights, but to me, I'm still not sold on Devon yet. Timothy Bradley has proven himself, so that's why
I think that Alexander. The reason why he doesn't get a chance is because he's one of the most avoided guys besides Bradley in that division. No one is calling out Alexander. Alexander's been calling out everyone, including Timothy Bradley. And Gary Shaw wants to make that fight, but understandably, he says he wants to wait a little while before it gets done. And so Devon Alexander and Timothy Bradley are left alone calling everyone else out. And guys like Amir Khan, no disrespect to Khan, I'm sure he'll fight anyone. The Golden Boy has been very. You never know, The Golden Boy has been very. They haven't really want to put him out there yet, understandably, because Khan's still young. He still has to develop everything together, and they try to fight everyone else.
Boxing is a business. I mean, they have to make as much money as they can about Khan. So as soon as they could, milk that cow, they could get they can actually throw him to the wolves.
Right, and I agree. I'm not completely sold on Alexander because of that one fight, but that one fight when he knocked out Urango, that was pretty impressive because nobody's knocked out.
And the way he dominated Junior Witter, I have to admit, was a lot more impressive than Timothy Bradley did it. Not to discredit Bradley on anything. He went to England and beat Junior Witter in a competitive fight, but
now
dominated.
Now staying in the division, we got Amir